Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going deep into a crisis that is not just unfolding quietly, but exploding inside Iran with a force that is reshaping entire cities, changing millions of lives, and pushing an entire nation toward a point from which there is no return. This is the story of Iran's water collapse, a slow disaster that has finally reached a breaking point. And now the country is living through the consequences that were warned about for decades, but never taken seriously. What we are seeing today is not just a shortage, not just drought, and not just mismanagement. It is a deadly thirst spreading across the land, touching rich and poor, young and old, rural and urban. This is a crisis no one can outrun, and no one can escape. People in some parts of Iran are waking up each morning to dry taps, empty tanks, and streets where people line up with plastic bottles hoping a tanker might arrive. What used to be normal, turning on a tap and expecting water, has become a luxury in many regions. Rivers are disappearing, dams are collapsing into mud, lakes that once supported entire provinces have turned into salt plains, and groundwater that took centuries to build has now been drained in just a few decades. It is a slow-motion collapse, but the pain is sudden, and today it is everywhere. In Tehran, a city once considered safe from this crisis, the situation is getting more severe each year. The population has grown, the infrastructure has not kept up, and the water sources feeding the city have been pushed to their limits. Reservoirs that used to be full most of the year are now at record lows. The snowpack in the surrounding mountains, a crucial source of fresh water, continues to decline due to climate changes and rising temperatures. What used to melt slowly and refill rivers now disappears too fast to be captured. This has forced authorities into desperate rationing plans, leaving entire districts without water for hours or even days. People who grew up seeing rivers flowing through cities now see nothing but cracked earth. The famous Zayandeh Rud in Isfahan, once a symbol of life and beauty, has become an open grave for water. Farmers who depended on it for generations have lost their crops, lost their income, and in some cases even lost their villages. Many have migrated to other cities, creating a wave of internal displacement that is rarely discussed but deeply felt. The connection between land and people, which remained strong for centuries, is now broken. Across Khuzestan, the situation is far worse. This region is home to major rivers, yet today it is one of the most water-scarce areas in the entire country. Pollution, dam construction, and redirection of water to industrial projects have pushed the system to collapse. Fishermen no longer have fish to catch. Farmers no longer have fertile land to grow crops. People are forced to rely on tankers that often arrive late or contaminated. Protests erupt repeatedly, not for political reasons alone, but because people are simply fighting to survive. Lake Urmia, once the largest saltwater lake in the Middle East, is now a shadow of its former self. It has shrunk dramatically, leaving behind salt storms that blow into nearby towns. These storms damage crops, destroy soil, corrode buildings, and harm people's health. Children living near develop breathing problems. Families can no longer stay outdoors for long hours. Every strong wind turns into a chemical wave that suffocates villages. This is not science fiction. It is reality for millions living around the lake. What makes Iran's water crisis so devastating is that it did not happen suddenly. Experts warned about it for years. Hydrologists studied falling aquifers. Environmental researchers highlighted disappearing lakes. Farmers observed declining yields. All signs pointed toward an approaching disaster, yet little changed. Groundwater was pumped faster than nature could replenish it. Wells were drilled everywhere, often illegally but tolerated. Agriculture demanded more water than the land could supply, especially water. Intensive crops like wheat and rice grown in regions already struggling with drought. Each year, the system grew weaker until it finally broke. Climate change has added another dangerous layer. Rainfall patterns have shifted, storms have become unpredictable, and long heat waves have dried out soil faster than ever. Iran is now hotter than at any time in recorded history. Temperatures above 45 degrees C are becoming more common. With increased heat comes increased evaporation, meaning even the water Iran does receive disappears before it can be used. This amplifies every other problem and pushes the entire nation closer to collapse. Cities are now competing for water. Provinces are competing. Farmers are competing with industries. Households are competing with factories. And in the middle of all this are everyday people who just want enough water for drinking, cooking, and basic life. Videos have surfaced showing long lines at emergency water tanks, people shouting at officials, families breaking down under pressure, and elderly citizens carrying empty containers hoping they won't return home disappointed. The desperation is striking. One heartbreaking story comes from a little village near Yazd where residents filled their tanks only once every 10 days. During summer, the interval rose to 15 days. Children walked kilometers to fetch water. Families woke up at 3 a.m. to collect any small drop coming through pipes. These stories repeat across the nation, different places, same struggle. Tehran's growing population puts additional strain on its limited supply. Over 10 million people live in the capital, and each summer brings the same warning. If consumption does not drop, the system may collapse. Water pressure weakens. Hospitals worry about shortages. Schools and businesses prepare emergency supplies. This is not a temporary crisis. This is a structural breakdown. Another factor worsening Iran's situation is aging infrastructure. Leaks, inefficient pipelines, old dams, and poor distribution systems cause huge losses. In some regions, up to 30% of treated water is lost before it even reaches homes. Repairing such an outdated network requires massive investment, which Iran struggles to allocate due to economic sanctions, inflation, and competing national priorities. Rural communities are among the hardest hit. Many villages have completely lost access to clean water and rely entirely on transported supplies. Some communities have been abandoned. People move to cities, creating overcrowding and pressuring already weak infrastructure. This phenomenon is known as environmental migration, and experts believe Iran could witness millions more forced to relocate in the coming years. Beyond the physical crisis lies a psychological one. A nation built on ancient rivers and agricultural heritage now faces the possibility of water bankruptcy. People feel the fear in daily life. Parents worry for their children's future. Farmers feel their decades of work slipping away. City residents panic each time rationing begins. The trust between citizens and institutions weakens when basic necessities become uncertain. Scientists warn that Iran could reach day zero, the moment when major cities run out of water, if no drastic action is taken. This is not speculation. Cape Town, South Africa, once came close to this scenario, and Iran's situation is even more severe due to climate patterns and decades of mismanagement. Once reservoirs dry and aquifers collapse, recovery becomes nearly impossible. Some experts argue that the crisis can still be slowed. Water conservation, modern irrigation, desalination, recycling wastewater, and redesigning agricultural priorities could help. But these solutions require national cooperation, long-term planning, and significant resources. Implementation must be fast and sustained. Otherwise, Iran may enter a phase where even emergency measures cannot save the system. Iran's people are not giving up. In many towns, communities have started their own conservation initiatives. Citizens are trying to reduce waste, recycle water, and adapt to shortages. Some farmers are shifting to more sustainable crops. Youth groups raise awareness about saving water. These small steps matter, but the scale of the crisis demands large-scale intervention. As the crisis grows, neighboring countries also feel the effects. Shared rivers become points of tension. Climate patterns shift across borders. Environmental instability in one nation can spread to others. Iran's crisis is no longer just Iran's problem, it is a regional threat. The world is watching because what is happening in Iran today could happen elsewhere tomorrow. Many nations face similar challenges: rising temperatures, declining rainfall, overextraction, and population growth. Iran is simply one of the first to experience the full force of what a water collapse looks like. It is a warning to the entire planet. Yet, in the middle of despair, there is resilience. People continue to adapt. They continue to hope. They continue to believe that solutions, however late, can still come. Iran's crisis is devastating, but the story is not finished. The nation still has a chance to rebuild, rethink, and restore. But time is running out, and every drop counts. This crisis is a reminder that water is not just a resource, it is life itself. Without it, no society can survive. No economy can function. No future can exist. That is why the world must pay attention, and why Iran must act before the last drop disappears.